Hi everyone, my name is Natalie. Today I wanted to talk about the books that I read during January and what I'm planning to read for February. So I started the year off by doing Salinger January, which I've mentioned in one video announcing the fact that I was going to read through J.D. Salinger's body of work during January to celebrate his anniversary, which I did, and I also did a video talking about the books as a whole. I will go just briefly through them now. The first one is The Catcher in the Rye, which is the only novel he published, which seems strange to say because he's so well known, and I feel like it's quite rare for an author to be more well known for their short work, or to be that well known, even though he was mainly a short story writer. But The Catcher in the Rye really grew on me this time on the rereading, and it is fantastic and had me much more emotional this time, which I found really interesting as a reading experience. The second one was For Esme with Love and Squalor, or also called 9 Stories, and apparently he had very strong feelings about the fact that the short story collection should be called 9 Stories and not named after one of the stories in the collection. But yeah, I love this. Again, this was my third reading of this, and it is still my favorite short story collection. I definitely want to read more short story collections because I feel like I actually really enjoy the form. But I haven't read that many. Rereading this really made me realize how much I enjoy the format when it's done well, and Salinger is a fantastic short story writer. Then after that is Franny Zooey, and this one, again, like Catcher in the Rye, really grew on me on a rereading experience. All of these 3 books I had read before, so they were all rereads for me, but the last one is Raise High, The Roof Beam, Carpenters, and Seymour, an Introduction. This was the first time I read through this, and it was an interesting experience. I loved Raise High, The Roof Beam. So colorful, which is probably one of the more vibrant of Salinger's writings, whereas I had more of a rocky start with Seymour, an Introduction. But I'm really glad to finally have read through all of his work, and if you're interested in more of my deep thoughts about his work, then I will link the video that I talked about his work in the cards and the description as well. I also read 3 poetry collections in the month that I borrowed from the library and mentioned in a library haul that I did in the middle of the month. The first one I read was Venus as a Beer by Vali Capildeo. I ended up not loving this. I think it was interesting to read because I really like the way she plays with the sound of language. I read most of the poetry out loud to myself just to hear the flow of the poetry, and I think she uses the sound of words in really interesting ways. It makes it a very entertaining reading to read out loud, and I like the way she plays with the rhythm of the words. A lot of the themes I feel like I should enjoy. I just didn't really connect with this on a deeper level, so while I enjoyed the form of it, I didn't feel like I connected with it. And the one that I read after that was my favorite of the 3, which is Life on Mars by Tracy K. Smith. And this is sort of split into 2, so the first half of the poems are mostly about bigger themes like the universe and planets and space, the infinite, and often paralleling that with more recognizable things and more grounded things, like humanity and the possibilities of life, the possible choices in life. The latter half is much more grounded and personal and intimate, and I much prefer the beginning parts of this collection. I will give you an example of something I liked. It's called Sci-Fi, and the last sections of it is some of my favorites in the collection as a whole. And yes, we'll live to be much older thanks to popular consensus, weightless, unhinged. Eons from even our own moon will drift in the haze of space, which will be once and for all scrutable and safe. I feel like there's also quite a few poems that touch on racism and discrimination, and I just really enjoyed her voice in this collection. So while not the entire collection hit home for me, I feel like this is one of those poets that I will actually want to follow. So I will be looking up more of Tracy K. Smith's poetry in the future. The last poetry collection I read was Keeping Mum by Gwyneth Lewis, and this touches on mother tongue and language in general, which is the main enjoyment I got out of this. A lot of this collection also touches on psychology and on mental illness, and I felt like I enjoyed the contents of this more than I enjoyed her actual writing. I don't really know how to talk about poetry in useful ways yet, because I haven't read enough of it to know how to talk about it analytically. I'm just sort of approaching poetry as something that connects with me or it doesn't. Something that engages me or has me feeling something. But that was what I read in January, which isn't much. I have already finished 2 books in February in the first 2 days or 3 days of the month, so those were sort of carrying over. So now on to my February TBR. First, let's talk about the books that I'm already reading, and one is... Actually, 2 of them are carryovers from January. First is The Toymakers by Robert Dinsdale. This is a historical fiction set in the beginning of the 20th century in London, and it follows a young girl who is pregnant, and she moves to this toy emporium, toy store, magical toy store, and ends up being sort of involved with the family who owns the toy store. And at the moment I'm at the point where you get to see a lot of the background to the toy store's existence. Enjoying it so far. We shall see where this goes. The next one I'm reading is J.D. Salinger, A Life by Kenneth Slavinsky. This is sort of the main read I have at the moment. I'm really enjoying it. It is a biography of J.D. Salinger, obviously, and it follows my Salinger reading because it's really interesting to read this right after reading all of his books, because you get all of the background stories to, for example, the fact that he wrote a lot of the stories in the 9-story short story collection and published them individually before The Catcher in the Rye even came out. And he had a lot of, some of the things I'm really enjoying about this is that you get to see Salinger's process in writing and the production of his books. He had a lot of specific thoughts about how the title should be named and how the books should be formatted and all of these things. And also the biography touches on how he reacted to the fame after his books started coming out. How he reacted to all of that attention has been really interesting to sort of follow his progress. So I'm really enjoying this and will be continuing on and definitely be finishing this in the month of February. A book that I have only just started and that I also have from the library is The Lido by Libby Page. The reason I picked this up is partly because of the swimming theme. I heard really good things about this when it first came out last year, and I've been sort of eyeing everything swimming related recently, to be honest. And for some reason I get the sense that this will be a really enjoyable Dear Mrs. Bird-esque reading experience, which I read Dear Mrs. Bird last year and had so much fun reading it, and I was sort of looking for something that is going to be that engaging and fun. If you can hear a sound in the background, that is another bird eating from the bird feeder. They've been almost constantly eating from it, so I'm happy that I put it up when I did, because clearly they need the extra food, or they appreciate it anyway. I'm getting sidetracked. But anyway, last book that I am currently reading is I Was Anastasia by Ariel Lawthorne, I think. I'm actually listening to this as an audiobook and I'm super enjoying it. It's about Anastasia Romanov and Anna something. I don't remember the last name of her, but it's about sort of the woman who claimed to be Anastasia Romanov. It's a dual, a sort of parallel timeline. So we have parts of the story is told in the outbreak of the Russian Revolution, and the other timeline is in the late 60s, early 70s from Anna, and the person who's claiming to be Anastasia. And the book is sort of, was she actually Anastasia or wasn't she? Was she an intruder and a fraud? And it's super engaging so far. I've listened to I think 15% of it, but it's very engaging, and it's so engaging in fact that I'm even more interested in reading about the actual Romanovs. So I decided that in February I will try to get to Four Sisters, The Lost Lives of the Romanov Grand Duchesses by Helen Rappaport. And this is a biography of the daughters of the last Tsar, and I'm planning to read this for my non-fiction reading challenge of read a book and then watch a documentary. So I'm planning to read this and then watch The Last Tsars, I think is the title of the documentary series on Netflix. That is my plan. So I'm thinking that I will pick this up after I've finished I Was Anastasia. Another book that I'm also hoping to get to for my nonfiction reading challenge is The Magnetic North: Notes from the Arctic Circle by Sarah Wheeler. I've mentioned before that I love reading about these distant places of the earth, and I'm planning to read this for my nonfiction challenge of reading about a place you'd like to go. I think I will probably never travel this far in my life, so this will be a way to travel there through a book. And I feel like reading about such a cold place is probably best done during the winter. I would love to hear if you read any of these books. What are your thoughts? Let me know. And I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.